Hey everyone, welcome back. So this is a video I'm going to do on 5 movies that have really shaped the way that my taste in film is up until today. So yeah, basically before I start, I just want to say this is sort of a video response in some respects to Jodie from Jodie's Movie Realm. Great channel, I'll list her details down below in the description. So Jodie did a video recently of a very similar thing, basically saying, you know, what 5 movies that she would like, or what has sort of had an impact on her growing up and getting interested in film. So I did put in her comments, you know, this is a video that sort of I've been having on the back burner, had on the back burner for so long, months and months now, and I've just never really put the effort in to get it done. So yeah, thank you to Jodie for giving me the fuel on the fire to just get this video up and running. I've got my 5 films, and I'm going to go through now and just explain a little bit about why these 5 films had an impact, what kind of impact they had on me, what I picked up from watching these movies, and how it sort of then shaped my taste in film. So without further ado, let's get going. Just a bit of context really, I suppose, before... These are movies that, you know, these are movies that when you're growing up, you grow up, and as Jodie said in her video, you end up watching lots of Disney movies, you watch up lots of family films, you know, comedies, that sort of thing, everything that's sort of suitable for TV, for all audiences, and you enjoy films, as all of us do. But there becomes a point where some of us, we hit this transition where we go from loving films and enjoying films to then starting to want more from them. But so what I mean by that is we kind of get curious, like, how did they do that camera shot? How did they make that special effect work? How did that become a thing? How did they light that scene? And that's kind of what these films are, the very, very first kindling kind of beginnings of, were for me. So all these films basically I saw way before I was really into any of that type of thing in film. These were movies that just sort of like hit me and have had an impact on me, and have no doubt have shaped how my taste in film is overall up until this day. So the first film, this is a film I watched with a buddy of mine. It was in the summertime. We were sort of like young kids in school holidays. We were that age where, you know, you weren't quite old enough to, you know, drive or go anywhere really. So you were stuck in your hometown, but your parents were at work. So me and him would hang out all the time. We lived in a seaside town. And I remember going around his one hot summer day, and we were hanging out in his room, and this is obviously pretty much pre-internet days as well back then, you've got to bear in mind. So we were just hanging out, listening to music, and all of a sudden he said, let's put a film on, and he whacked on this film, Stand By Me. Now, I'd never seen this film at this point before. I'd never heard of this film. I had no idea what we were getting in for. But, you know, so he stuck it on, probably on VHS, on his old 4x3 TV in his room. And we just sat on his floor there watching this film. And it was one of these ones that instantly reacts, like connects to you, especially at that age. So I'm so glad I hit it at the age, you know, almost at the age these boys probably were themselves when they were filming. I'm sure everyone knows this film. Now, these films, I should mention really, these films aren't mostly going to be hidden gems of any sort. These are going to be quite big films like this. But there is obviously always going to be people out there that have not seen these types of films somewhere along the line. So maybe one of these 5 you may not have seen. I'd obviously highly recommend all of these 5 films. But yeah, getting back to the Stand By Me. So this film, we sat down, we watched this movie. We connected instantly with the guys in this film. This film has, without a doubt, made me or given me the connection to any 80s nostalgic movies, basically. So I'm still chasing that kind of like feeling now. So anytime there's an 80s movie on there, I think this, and I really enjoy all these sort of 80s coming of age movies, even sort of like the teen movies that they do in the 80s as well. I think my love of those all stems back to this first experience with my best pal watching this many years ago. So it just has that look, that feeling that you just can't quite describe. It's just like, it's just the magic of that film. So yeah, the 80s nostalgia, the look, the feel, the vibe, the lads hanging out together, you know, something we could really relate to. This definitely started my love of like coming of age movies. This started my love of the 80s movies, you know, not quite feel-good movies, but, you know, where you can just, like, watch kids hanging around, hanging out all day, just like you were doing with your mates at the time. And yeah, so that's what I've got a lot to owe Stand By Me. I'm sure everyone's seen this film, so I won't go through the plot line, but obviously if you haven't seen this film, look into it. It's fantastic. So that's the first one on my list, Stand By Me. So the second film on my list, basically, funny enough, it does appear, mild spoiler, but it does appear on Jodie's video. So when I watched Jodie's video, I did think to myself, I could probably pick 4 out of the 5 films that she has picked there and put them into a video myself with very similar reasonings. So I think we've both kind of gone a very similar path with films, at a very similar age. I'm a bit older than Jodie is, but yeah, I think I didn't want to do obviously a complete copy of Jodie's, but there was one film that I couldn't not put in this video, so do apologise that I had to cross this one over for you there, Jodie, but this one is a film called American Beauty. So yeah, I agree with everything that Jodie says in her videos. Be sure to go check that video out. But for me, the reason why this has to make this list is because when I got into college, I did do media studies and film study for a while. And there was 2 films we were assigned to study, essentially this film here, American Beauty, and Erin Brockovich. So obviously 2 very different films, and I think that was the reason that we had to study them, because they were so different in the way they were made. But yeah, this film here, now this may be one that has gone under the radar for a lot of people, obviously due to the controversy of the actor in here nowadays. So if you're a younger generation, you may not have ever heard or seen of this film, or if you have, you may have avoided it due to the sort of controversy. I would say go into this film, watch it and give it a try for yourself. There are scenes in this film that are amazing. They are shot amazingly. Now this film started getting me into directors, and I'm not a guy that really remembers directors or actors' names or producers or soundtracks or composers. That's not me, sadly. I enjoy films, but unless they're a big A-lister and I've seen them like 100 times, it just goes in one ear and out the other with me. But this guy, Sam Mendes, this is the director of this film. This film basically gave me a whole lot to work with here. So you've got the colour red, for example, running through this, and what it symbolises, what it means. It stars Kevin Spacey, who is basically a middle-aged man. He seems to have everything in life you could ever want. He's got the American dream, which is this film's all about, basically. He's got the white picket fence. He's got the family. He's got the young daughter. She's got friends. He's got the wife. They've both got careers. But he's getting to that point in his middle-aged life where basically certain things start going a little bit wrong for him. He kind of then has a bit of a breakdown to some extent. He kind of just decides, I'm going to do things differently. Not maybe everything that you see and want to hear about and want to get out of life. I've got it all, but do I really want it? Do I enjoy it? Is it all working? So it follows his character, and you basically see him just decline from your average man doing the 9 to 5, the daily grind, going into this sort of like mad spiral of just doing what he wants. He just does what he wants. He has a midlife crisis. So his young teenage daughter, basically, her friend starts taking a liking to him as well. He feels like that's kind of at the time he feels that's quite a compliment. So he starts working out. He starts doing all these weird things. He has the hunch that his wife may not be being very faithful to him. So, he's kind of like, he doesn't almost care at this point. He's kind of like done with his life and his relationships that he's got currently going. Chris Cooper is in this film. I think it's the first film I maybe saw Chris Cooper in. He does a great job in this film. Wes Bentley is in this film as the young kid who has the video camera that's recording all the time. I think it's Thora Birch, I think her name is as well. Really good in this film. Such a good cast in here. But yeah, so basically follows Lester Burnham. This is the character that Kevin Spacey plays, going through this sort of like day-to-day American dream life, and to a certain point where something goes wrong. Now this film, I still quote this film to my friends, constantly. Even people I don't know, I end up throwing this quote out here all the time. I just can't help myself. It just makes me laugh every time. There are certain things in this film. So this guy has a boss called Brad. This young guy who comes into this business and has to, basically has to get rid of Lester Burnham. He has to let him go, if you like. But Lester Burnham's at the mindset and it's the age where he doesn't want to just lay down and take it. So he ends up doing something quite odd. I say odd, he fights his corner. He ends up coming out of it quite well off. But there's a quote in this film which I always throw at people. Whenever someone says to me, Ash, have you got a minute? I can't help but think, or quite often say, for you, Brad, I got 5. If you know, you know. It just hits so funny in the film. But yeah, coming of age, sort of not a coming of age movie. What am I going on about? A movie about a middle-aged man who's having a midlife crisis. Things are going pear-shaped all around him. He's trying to grab and grasp everything he can that he wants to enjoy in life. Sports cars, radio-controlled cars. He's going mad. He's getting into drugs. He's working out. He's sort of like, trying to impress young girls. He's doing all these things. He's getting an absolutely low-key responsibility job. He just doesn't care anymore. He wants to enjoy life, and that's it. This film is fantastic. If you haven't seen this, highly recommend it. There is a scene in this. I remember watching the commentary, I think, on the DVD. That's how interested I started getting into this film. There's a scene in this where Chris Cooper basically has to go over to Lester Burnham's house, his neighbour's house, and it's raining really hard. And there's a scene where basically Chris Cooper ends up walking away from his house in the rain, and the guy just disappears into the rain. It's a fantastic shot. There are many other shots like it. Obviously, the rose petals are very symbolic from back in that time period of the late 90s. Such a good film. Hopefully, some of these clips I can put in this video will help tempt anyone who hasn't watched this yet into watching it. Highly recommend American Beauty. So the next film on my list is one that, again, sort of like predates me watching wise. It predates what American Beauty was for me, but this was one that me and my friends used to stick on a video night. We used to go mad for this because the title alone is basically enough to get any teenage boy, or probably girl, just absolutely ready for what you're about to experience. And that is Evil Dead 2. So yeah, I mean, those two words to a teenage boy, just, you can't get any better. Evil Dead. The dead are evil. Let's see what this is all about. So yeah, this is one that we used to throw on video nights. We'd have it on repeat. We'd watch this every time we had a video night, and we just sat down together as young lads, just chilling out. So good. Now, what this film provided me is probably provided me with the kind of the knowledge and the respect for someone who has not as much money as your Hollywood blockbusters that a lot of people, including myself, would have been watching at the time. You could tell this was done on a budget. You could tell the effects were quite low budget. You could tell, literally, there's a scene in here where I remember that an eyeball pops out of this demon's head, flies across the screen into this woman's mouth, and you can see on the DVD, you can see the string that is flying across. It's that low budget, but it all added to the charm. It just made it kind of more appealing to us. It made it, it was almost something that we could do, and it gave us that kind of like inspiration to think, I can see how they've done that. We could do that. That's not too hard to pull off. Obviously, in reality, it's probably a lot harder than it looks, but it did give you that kind of like inspiration, and that's all really that you need as a young guy. Like, you just think we could have gone off and made something very similar to this, and I'm sure we probably tried in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, The Evil Dead 2, practical effects, this is what it gave me, my love of practical effects, the goo, the gore. Doesn't matter, you can see the fact that they're wearing white contact lenses, or you can see the string, the eyeballs going on. It doesn't matter that you can tell it's just like foam latex and, rubber gloves on people. It doesn't matter that it's just like literally a puppet with, someone's hand through a wall, just operating this like head through a wall. Ash, the character in this, is amazing. We used to quote him all the time. He has such good catchphrases. Obviously, this one, we had seen the previous one, which was a lot darker. So the original Evil Dead just had more of a much darker, serious tone to this, which we all kind of like enjoyed and was creeped out by. But when Evil Dead 2 came along, it added that extra comedy element, the sort of like almost slapstick, borderline slapstick comedy, which just was the icing on the cake. It was, it was the extra thing that this film really needed for us at that time frame. So yeah, this provided my love of practical effects, gore, goo, low budget goodness, and probably why I like some of the films that I like today on my horror shelf behind me. So that is The Evil Dead 2. Okay, so this one is another one where I think I think it's John from Mondo Celovic. I don't know whether he has now seen it since, but I don't think he had seen this before, because I'm not sure he's too big a fan of Tom Hanks, who does star in this film. I know my good pal Marcus as well. He hadn't seen this film until recently, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I would have seen this film if the situation that I wasn't in had occurred, and that is a film called The Green Mile. So I feel really fortunate for this one. So what happened with this film for me historically was I was, again, a very young guy, like probably early teens. And I was round a friend of the family's house with my mum and dad. And they were hanging out as you did, and you had to sort of like, sometimes you'd have to tag along as a young kid when your mum and dad go out to sort of like a friend's. And they were obviously quite a lot older than what we would be. But, we all sat there, they had a good time, they were chatting, there was food and stuff. And then out of nowhere, as the night sort of got nearer to the end, the guy whose house we were at, he basically came along and said, "Oh, I've got this video I rented. We should watch it." So he threw in this tape, and this tape was The Green Mile. Now, I had, like I say, I'd never heard of this film, I'd never seen this film, and I'll be honest, if I had heard or seen of it, I'm not sure I would have gone for it. I'm not sure at that age I would have actually opened a VHS case and thrown it in. To what this film has kind of like shaped for me or taught me: don't be scared of long movies. This movie's like 3 hours plus, I think. It doesn't feel like it. The story for me, the way it's shot, the way it's acted, all flies by in, it feels like an hour and a half, 2 hour movie tops to me every time I watch it. It's one of those ones I could be so tired and still put this on late at night and I will get through it. Like, it will just hold my attention. The performances in this were amazing from everyone involved. The fact that when I first started this film back in the day, when I go back to that time where I was sort of like, I remember what I was eating, I remember where I was sitting, where this guy put his VHS tape in. The first 15-20 minutes, I wasn't sure. I thought, oh God, here we go. I'm going to have to watch this old man's film that he's just found and he wants to watch. And, I'm not going to have any interest in this. It was all kind of like, it was sort of a voiceover. If you know the film well, you know that it starts off with, it's kind of like looking back on time. And I was like, oh God, here we go. And then it opens up on this sort of like olden times where people are wearing these old clothes. And I was like, oh gosh, it's going to be some sort of period drama type thing, which I just had no interest in at the time. And then as the story unfolds, it takes so many twists and turns to different genres. You think, well, hang on a minute, this is really interesting. And then you meet, obviously, Michael Clarke Duncan's character, John Coffey. And from there, I was hooked. Like, to see this massive guy on screen, this also gave me the kind of like, the drive to then go find out, like, was this guy really this big? How did they get him to look this big? If not, like, what camera tricks did they use? So this really got me thinking about how films were made to some extent, in terms of how did they make him look another 2 foot taller than everyone else. I mean, he pretty much was 2 foot taller than everyone else, but they did have to do other things as well, because there were certain actors that were still quite as tall as him, or almost as tall as him. But this really inspired me to, one, not be afraid of long movies. 2, don't judge by book by its cover. If you think, it might start as a bit of a period piece and you think, oh Christ, no, not for me. And don't necessarily think that what you think about a film is going to happens, because sometimes there's more to it than that. And it can end up being one of your favourite films of all time. So if you're still on the fence about this film and you haven't seen it yet, I won't go into any spoilers of the plot, obviously, but I've hopefully put in a few clips here which you can see, and you might get an idea of roughly whether you want to check it out for yourself, but I'd highly recommend it. So that is The Green Mile. Okay, so the next one on my list is probably one of the first films that, again, at that age where I was still kind of like, I wasn't technically studying film, I wasn't trying to study film, I was just enjoying them from what they were. This was a film I watched, and I think it was either... It might have been a VHS, it might have been a DVD, like a really early one. I put this film on and I really loved how this film was very, very subtle, very quiet, very sort of dark in tone. There was something about it straight away that you could tell something was different with this film. The way it was shot, the way it was framed, the way that the shots were all put together and edited. The overall look of the film is just really dark, but it was really interesting. Now, this film is a film by David Fincher, and that is Panic Room. So I have this DVD set here, and I think there is a 4K out, which I would love to get at some point. But this film here, I remember watching this, and it's got Forest Whitaker in there. It's got a young Kristen Stewart, I believe her name is. There's some big names in here, which a lot of them I didn't know at the time. I knew Jodie Foster, and I was kind of following her work to some extent back then. Put this film on. It's a home invasion movie if you haven't seen it. Like I say, I'm not going to spoil too much, but this Jodie Foster's character essentially buys this house, or is looking to buy this house. This house happens to have a panic room inside it. She quite likes the idea of having a panic room. There's a sort of a worry. She's with a young teenage daughter, and it's just those two. And yep, sure enough, obviously this becomes a home invasion movie. But it's so much more than that. The way that this film is shot, the way he uses different camera angles. The thing that really stood out to me in this film, there was a shot, and it's a blink and you miss it kind of shot, but it just blew my mind. There's a shot, I'll try and put it in. There's a shot where the camera goes across this open plan kitchen at a fair speed, and the camera passes through the handle of a kettle on the worktop, and that's when my mind just flicked, and I went, how have they got a Hollywood camera through the handle of a kettle? So obviously back then I wasn't aware of or even digital effects or CGI wasn't a major thing back then, not like to the realistic stage that it is kind of like now. So it just really triggered something in my head, and then all of a sudden I was looking at the film in a different way. I was like, wait, how have they done that shot? How is that possible? There's another shot where the camera goes through a banister upstairs, and it literally goes through the bars, and you know how wide a bar of a banister is. It's like, it's tiny. And the camera then in one take, or so it seemed, was coming down the stairs and through into the kitchen. It really got me thinking. This film is probably responsible for thinking how films are made in terms of like practicalities. How did they get the camera in that position? Why did they choose that position? What have they done to make it work? So yeah, that really intrigued me that way. But yeah, really good home invasion movie. There's some tension in here, like I say, because it starts off so not slow. That I don't want to put people off by saying slow. It kind of like builds the tension up really gradually, and as it gradually builds up, it just feels all that more impactful. So as you kind of go along, it's been quite a quiet, calm, dark movie. Establishing what's going on, establishing the setting, and then there's a point in the movie where things go wrong. And then there is such a tense moment in this scene. I remember my heart was beating quite fast when I watched this movie, where Jodie Foster's trying to get to the panic room in a certain time. And I remember just having anxiety about the whole thing. But yeah, really good film. Highly recommend. It doesn't get talked about anywhere near enough as it should do. It made me basically take note of this director. It made me go and check out his filmography. It made me follow him from that day onwards. So yeah, David Fincher, again, if you haven't heard of or seen, I would highly recommend checking out a lot of his, especially the era of work around this time. But yeah, that is the last movie on my list, and that is Panic Room. So hopefully that was a little insight into 5 movies that have basically shaped or changed or made me think about film from a young age. That sort of time in your life when you're still enjoying films, but you're coming of age yourself, and you start to cross that line into there's something more about movies here I'm enjoying than just what entertaining for an hour and a half. So thanks again to Jodie for the fuel on the fire, as I say, to get this video off the ground. If anyone else has got the similar video they want to put together, then feel free, obviously, let me know and I'll check it out. Or if you want to leave a list of your own films that have affected you over the years down in the comments, feel free and I'll get back to you. And with that said, I will see you again on another video. Thanks for watching.